Masked by the darkness of paranoia, finds a nasty flank onto the backline of Evil Geniuses, but do they have the damage to back it on up? Boogie's forced to flash, the shutdown goes over the revenge, and Evil Geniuses find vengeance and strike true into the heart of TSM. And I guess Armeo's cut off from the rest of the pack here. Evil Geniuses, though, give him a breath of life thanks to Ayla, and they turn the fight on its head. TSM thought that they were able to catch out Armeo, but he's too tanky to take down. Ruby is forced to flash over the wall, but Jojo's gonna answer with a flash of his own as he slices him down to shreds. Side Glacial Prison is thrown out. They look to be engaged. Vulcan right into the front line. Impact goes right on in. Prince is free, firing all these feathers. No one is touching Vulcan. No one is touching Prince. Harry's trying to look for the backline, but Prince is undetected. But Yon takes out a full shreds Vulcan down. They find Impact. Prince launches forward. He still has the Featherstorm to use it, and Prince steps up. It is huge. Could this be the time? FlyQuest fans, do they get to rejoice? Prince steps up and takes out Team Liquid. Golden Guardians find themselves without their junglers. They look for the engage. FBI's gonna clean it up here. Dhokla slices down Stixay. The Root Maker roots him on up. The flash, he can't get away out of that one. NRG just close out the game right here, right now. Teleport is coming in from Dhokla. They burned down one Nexus turret easily. This could be an NRG. They had to fight through thick and thin, but they finally did it for the longest game of the LCS year.
Somebody now looking to try to turn things around. Has Diamond stepped too far?
A little bit too far, but maybe they wanted to bait that win in because they got a lot of damage and they found the poke onto Quid. All out onto Rich, but Rich gonna die to someday as they look for the poke on a double. If it will be traded 2 for 2 at the moment. Nice. Is that?
Jayce? 1 HP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Peace.
Can you cover me?
Yeah. No flash, no flash.
Let's go next. Let's go next.
Nice, Quid. Good.
Good job, bro. Top lane, but the TV's in the bot lane are going to be most important because Savannah's going to die before anything happens. They're going to trade back on Tactical. That's the guy with the gold. You got the stun coming in. Pension back. Immortals on the run. Where can treats go? The cow about to be made into some burgers as Cloud9 pick up the fight. Oh, but Treats in a little bit of danger. He tried to go back in. He even used the Moonlight Vigil to stun, but it's on to the tanky member. Sven goes into the backline, but look at Blabber. They've got everyone corralled here. Berserker shows up out of nowhere for a double kill. Everyone's flashing away, but they're picking up the kills. Solo fighting against Fudge, and we already know how that matchup goes. It is all Cloud9 tactical. You can't even get out of this one. You're pinched, you're locked in, and you're triple killed by Fudge.
No. Welcome to Waiting Room, where you will apparently have to guess what we were talking about immediately prior to this. It's also birthday day. Mark and Kobe, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
I did not get you.
Happy 24th birthday, man.
24th?
Congratulations.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
What do you by a couple
are you
years?
rooting around your pockets?
I was looking for something.
Yeah, I'm 16.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, dude.
Here's a phone. I bought you this phone. You want a phone?
Give me my phone back. Go away.
All right,
No gifts from you.
let's pull up the standings and schedule. In all seriousness, happy birthday to both Kobe and Mark. You guys will be joining each other on a cast later today. But first, we still have Cloud9 and Evil Geniuses LG tied in first place now. Golden Guardians and Team Liquid Honda tied in at second. And then a giant, massive teams at 3 and 4, including 100 Thieves, Dignitas, NRG, TSM, then Immortals Progressive in 9th place, and FlyQuest still in 10th, but with their first win on the board coming yesterday.
And 2 more winnable games this week. They could bounce back from the first 2. Also, I like giant mass as a saying instead of soup.
I like
giant mass.
I'm fine with anything.
It kind of sounds weird now that I think about it. I'm like, it sounds a little gross. Like,
Biopsy out of the LCS.
yeah, like something you're removing from your skin. Anyway.
When someone says giant mass, it's never good.
Exactly. Moving on. C9 and EG, both doing super well.
Yeah.
I'm really hyped to see them face off against each other. And, you know, here are some highlights from their first day. It's nice when we can actually build a strong narrative between the 2 top teams in the league.
I mean, it's nice that they have that news title sponsor because life is good for evil geniuses.
Wow. They're gonna thank you for that.
No one talks about Cloud9.
All right, we can talk about Cloud9's.
The curse is success.
If you want, then talk about them.
Suffering from success.
Then talk about them.
Say?
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, continue. This is the point.
Okay.
Hype them up.
EG's on the screen right now, so I'm going to talk about EG. Then afterwards, we'll talk about this. We were just talking before the show about how this win against TSM was impressive because it didn't feel like they played well as a team, but they just gapped everybody in lane, which made it feel like they could actually be really good, not just like surprise good.
We were joking about it being like a Korean feeling game versus like an NA team at Worlds where like they are just winning the entire game, up gold naturally from playing better. The one time that, you know, they found a kill was they had to send tons of resources to make it happen. You fall further behind on other parts of the map. EG was just in complete control despite not getting a ton of kills early.
Exactly. Whenever you have teams like this, you expect them to fall off at a certain point. It's like, oh, nice honeymoon phase, congratulations, and now you guys are going dipping. But that didn't happen. You're right. It feels like that's 2 games in a row where there was this game, there was the Team Liquid game, where they were doing well in lanes again in the early laning phase. And then, at least in that game, they had really strong team play and good coordination, great vision control. There's like a lot of positives. So there's a lot to say good about Evil Geniuses right now, and there's just hope, at least for me, that they don't drop off that success.
Okay, now for the positives about Cloud9.
All right.
Yeah.
I feel like Sven has looked good on any champion he's played, right? I don't think any longer is it the like Sven is new to support, so it's lucky that he's in an enchanter meta because he's able to grind enchanters at the same rate as other supports. I think he's been in the position long enough that he's just a very good support.
Yeah.
Right? And that's allowing Berserker to play as well as ever. I think Blabber is playing more carries, which is really exciting. I do actually think Fudge and M&S are not performing as well as they did in spring currently. And they're a little goofy with some of their drafts, so I hope they can stay focused through the year because I think they have the most talent of anyone in the league.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about watching these 2 teams go up against each other, obviously JoJo M&S is hype, but one thing I'm really looking at is jungle because Armeo has played really well, and together Armeo and JoJo Pyun have played really well. But if Blabber, I mean, not if Blabber is good at everything because he's good at like pretty much everything, but he is really good at dismantling opposing junglers, like learning their patterns, being able to counter jungle them. Like you already said, it's a really good meta for them. And additionally, with the lane gapping part of when we're looking at EG's game from day one, I don't think that happens against C9.
Correct.
Obviously draft depending, but I just don't think they're going to be able to go in towards C9 and just be like, we're going to gap you in lane, and then the game is going to explode. Additionally, C9 are really good at finding openings to trade cross map.
Yeah, and to just a quick response to the Jatt point about like Fudge in particular. Like I feel like some of the mistakes he's made in lane are more so like I have a lead, I'm gonna go for a dive, and I failed at the dive.
Sure.
That's happened like 2 times.
I mean, it happened against Rich, which is understandable.
Mind control, by the way.
All right.
All right, it's over.
So he had that. But for the most part, like he's still been doing really well in lane outside of that. Actually, the last game that he had versus Solo, got a solo kill on that one. And like it's just one of those things where I think it's hard to say the same things a lot of the times for Cloud9. I like the point about Sven and how it feels like no matter what champion, he's kind of shed that image of just being an enchanter player, which sucks. If it's enchanter meta, you're playing enchanters.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of that will be an issue, but it seems like they're trying to round out a lot of their, you know, tough issues with the wonky drafts, like trying to experiment a little bit more.
Yeah, I just hope that neither of these teams lose today because this is a Friday matchup.
Yeah,
we're
it's for
gassing
tomorrow.
up.
Yeah, it's not even today.
Battle
It's
for
tomorrow.
first. Please do not lose today, both of you guys.
Begging.
But EG are playing IMT, and this is interesting to me because it's Revenge versus his old team, right? And like when I was talking to him yesterday in the interview, we talked about, because like every time behind the scenes, like he's been playing super well, but also every time behind the scenes when I see him, he's just like the other day, he was like massaging Armeo's shoulders and being like, my team's so good, man. Like I'm so hyped. And he's performing well individually, but also adjusting to a slightly different role on this team, playing more tanks, being able to coordinate that. He talked about the way people see top laners. And I also think like he really wants to beat his old team because he was kind of the face of IMT for so long.
Yeah, it reminds me of, because the season's going by pretty quickly, in off-season where there was a legitimate fear that he would be teamless. There was him, there was Tenacity, like EG was like the only team because they had kind of blew up that was still gathering players, and you're like, is this guy not going to have a team with how well he played on IMT at the time, right? It was kind of weird to see that happen. So now that they're facing off against each other, that is to me, and should be to a lot of people, the most entertaining thing about this is just to see. Now, sadly, a week ago, I thought it was going to be more of a story of like 2 teams doing really well. IMT started out hot. EG is doing well. It's like, oh, they both benefited from the situation. Now IMT is struggling a little bit and needing to find grounding.
I gotta say, one other nice thing for EG
Yeah.
is they never lack motivation.
Yeah.
Revenge against Immortals, gotta beat
I
down
have
my
to
old
beat
team.
them.
There's a lot of old
Unforgiven
teams.
against 100 Thieves, be like, I gotta
have
prove to them
to.
that I should have been starting. Ayla, FlyQuest, our Mayo, Team Liquid, and TSM.
JoJo, the whole league.
They're
Yeah.
fueled by spite.
They're just fueled by so much spite.
Hateful people on this team.
That's why
And
they're
it
evil.
works.
Yeah, it works.
The hateful five.
All right, moving on. We actually have a bunch of active streaks in the LCS, win streaks,
do.
loss streaks, they're broken. So we're gonna check in on that now.
We're checking in on streaks.
It's
Yeah,
the streakers
whoa.
We're checking in
section.
on streaks.
Is that you, Mark?
It's the LCS streakers.
Oh my god.
We're talking streaks. Go ahead. Who you want to talk about?
That's
Amazing.
it? It's not gonna be there the whole time?
Yeah, wait. I thought
Just have that rolling.
Loop that.
this was advertised to me as it was
I
just
thought
gonna
it was gonna
stay
be a
on
loop.
screen.
No, it was.
If we did all that for 5 seconds of a graphic,
What do you mean all that? I walk in front of a green screen.
you
It probably
streaked
took
the
10
whole
seconds.
crew.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the people who had to
There
watch
we go.
the recording this because I actually had to do like 4 takes of this because they were like, oh, your arms are actually too big. They fell off the green screen. So, like, go in the middle more. Your wingspan was, we weren't accounting for the wingspan of the arm wiggle, so do that one again. So I was shirtless in the studio.
And your
doing
hair
this.
is also not
Yeah.
made. It's just
Yeah, wow.
before.
I don't have this problem because I am
it's
short
going in reverse.
as F. Wow.
Wait, 2x. Can we run it 2x?
Yes, please. I'm
EG,
begging.
who we were just talking about, they have a 4-win streak.
Yeah.
So obviously, we just talked about. There we go. It's so much better sped up. Just like, woo.
Okay. All right,
Can you guys focus? We have really important things to talk about.
All right, EG, they're on a
Yeah.
4-game win streak. We talked about how good they are. Is there anything else that you guys want to cover in terms of how, I guess we shouldn't say surprisingly good anymore, right? Because now they're just good. They're one of the best teams in the league.
Well, I think for me, the question is how long the streak can go on because you look at what's causing it, right? And I think a big part of it was the lane dominance, and it's particular in JoJo. We've highlighted that he has smashed every single lane so far.
Yeah.
The question for me is, can he do that the entire split? That's a tall order to be like, oh, you're just going to be the best player in the league every single game, and that's how your team wins, is through mid pressure. Because even in that game where he got targeted on the Yone, they sent everything to get him multiple times, and it allowed the rest of the team to just grab turret plates and get ahead. It was still a lot of leads off his back, and so I do feel like that puts a lot of pressure on him, and if anything's going to break their streak, it's a bad JoJo game, an int JoJo game, which he just legitimately has not had yet through 7 games.
Yeah. On the edge of having it in the Yone game.
Yeah, it was
but
close.
it was still a good performance. I think the other thing that's helping them is just a level of decisiveness. JoJo has been very vocal. I know Armeo is actually a very decisive player as well when he's feeling it. So they've shown that as well. They just aren't hesitating.
Yeah, and my only fear, like everyone else, is kind of just echoing the idea of complacency. When you find that success, you don't want to rest
been
on
like
it.
just over 2 weeks.
I know, right? But it's going on pretty
We
quickly.
have
We're already
such
down.
a compressed
We're
schedule,
nearing
yeah.
halfway through the split. It's kind of easy to have an ego and feel confident when your team is kind of smashing, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're smashing, you're like, oh, we're finding wins because we're really focused on what makes us good, which is funneling resources into JoJo. But then when you're winning through every lane, suddenly it's like, actually, I'm Unforgiven. We're doing really well, guys. Why can't we play through the
He's sleeper OP right now.
lane,
No
why-
one's talking about
He is.
Unforgiven.
No one's talking about it.
He's actually playing so
Yeah.
well.
So like everyone is performing, so a lot of the times you start to play towards ideals and make mistakes. So I don't want to speak that into existence, but that's the fear.
You don't have that power, don't worry.
But true, you do.
Yeah, Jatt
Jatt's the voodoo doctor
That
who's
is
cursing
fair.
people.
But the only thing I want to make a mention of is the fact that they were it feels like every member of that team was really pissed that they lost to Dignitas. And so like the fact that they internalized that pretty deeply means that's probably not the issue.
One of the teams they beat, TL, now on a 3-game loss streak, which after having such a strong start to their season, it's kind of sad to see, and it's not necessarily even happening in the same way, I would say, outside of that Dignitas game where, we were used to in spring seeing them get these monstrous early game leads and then just not knowing what to do in the mid to late game.
Yeah.
I haven't felt that as much from this team still. But yeah.
I will say, especially looking at these highlights, the Dignitas game, you can see the gold is pretty close. This EG game, they're pretty even in gold and not winning around Baron setup. And this FlyQuest game was, again, a very long and close game.
Yes.
And all 3 close games they have lost.
Yes.
In the 4 wins, they blew the other team out.
Yes.
So even though I think they're slightly improved in their objective setup and their team play and their like genuine coordination, it's still not that good. And they need to, I think they still need to blow people out in lane to win games.
I agree, but especially with how they're drafting. That last game, the other team was all physical damage, but they were so early game that they can't stop building damage to itemize armor or something like that. Their drafts are very early game centric, which is like, great, you blew them out, the game's over. But when that doesn't happen, the barrier of execution to win that game becomes so high. And I think that last game versus FlyQuest, like I don't think FlyQuest was playing great. I think they had a comp that ended up you know, just winning naturally.
Yeah, that's why I feel really conflicted, because I agree with you. It feels like if they don't have a lead, then they're just not as good as the team that they've been facing. But that last game, they were winning fights with the team composition that they had, right? It felt like they were winning fights multiple times, even though it was like they just don't have the damage. They were playing fights out well around Yan. So I have some faith. We'll see what happens today.
Against C9.
We'll see what happens tomorrow.
It's gonna be
4-4, streak continues.
Another team that's unfortunately on a loss streak is Immortals, which was a team that I don't think any of us rated super highly going into the season, but after week 1, we were like, okay, there's something here. Like, Tactical seems to be playing a lot better with Treats there. We kind of know Solo's MO of like what he's gonna play in the top lane and what he's going to be able to contribute to a team. We really liked Baloo's creativity. But they've just seemed, in my opinion, kind of lost on the map, especially when it comes to a lot of these setups.
Yeah, longest streak, the biggest streakers in the LCS.
That's a 5 streak.
It's a 5 streak.
To get your little streaking graphic up again.
No, we don't need to do that.
I've forgotten what we're talking about. I need to see the graphic again.
Yeah, definitely.
The Immortals side, the thing is, like, okay, EG you think will continue to be good. I think, you know, Team Liquid jury's out, but unfortunately for Immortals, I'm not quite sure where the turnaround comes from. You know, when it feels just very inconsistent who their carry threat is. Sometimes it's kind of Balulu, but he flubbed some late game situations. Tactical sometimes gives up some kills. Kemby hasn't snowballed many games. Solo's more of this weak side player. It doesn't feel like there's this person that you can easily lean on to take control of the game.
Yeah, it's like, because there's way too many problems. You're right. It's like they're losing in lane, or one draft I remember vividly that they had, this was probably versus EG, that they just lost like throughout 3 lanes. That one was really tough to play. So some were just really losing drafts, some were just individual errors. Another thing, it feels like some eyes on the map and communication, because it's like you can tell very clearly like top lane is going to get dove and is going to be put out of the game, but the jungler's not pathing towards them, so the dive happens without a hitch, and you're like, okay, well, if you're pathing towards it and understand it well enough in time, it can work out. So it's just a lot of team coordination issues.
And then 2 streaks broke. Obviously, Jatt, you're gonna know one of them, because Enero saw Golden Guardians losing as soon as you apologized to him. He was like, I want no part of this.
I made a segment yesterday that apologized for doubting Golden Guardians as they're on a 4-game winning streak. I legitimately wasn't trying to jinx them, but Enero's never going to do anything with us again.
It felt very
especially because of the way they lost this game. They actually were in a winning position until this play here, where they tried to take their Giga-fed Tristana doing Elder Dragon and still tried to guard Baron.
Yeah.
It did not work.
Then they just lose the game through the top lane. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny that they were on the 4-game winning streak and then lost again. But they are actually, I still think, quite good.
That loss to me was like, you guys should have won that game. You had a call that, like, in theory makes some sense, where you want to protect one, go for the other with the Trist. Yeah. They just got too aggressive with those people defending. So, like, I don't change my opinion on them at all just because the streak snapped.
And then obviously we're going to end with the biggest one, right? Because we were talking about when are FlyQuest going to win their first game. As it turned out, it was yesterday. I like what you touched upon with the composition that FlyQuest ran. Actually, going into yesterday, I was ranting so much about how little we'd seen Poppy and Tristana on this patch because of how much I'd seen it in the LCK and in the LPL. And this was the first cohesive draft, I felt, from FlyQuest, where I didn't feel like pieces of their draft belonged to a different draft, especially in some of their 4 or 5 picks. And even though I'm not going to say their execution was always on point, I don't know if that's what you're making a face at, but I did like their comp. It did end up winning out, and maybe now with that off their back, they can look forward and play a lot more confidently.
Yeah, I saw Prince I believe it was actually Degon who took like a Twitter video from his phone. Prince was really, really happy they won.
Yeah.
Like very emotionally invested in that game. So it's not like this is a team that is just like, oh, we're in the LCS now. It's not working out. We're going to give up. Like they're still all really, really grinding to turn this split around.
I saw some pretty strong emotions, not just after their game on their side, but also like the Team Liquid side. I know people after the NRG Golden Guardians, long games that get you just like emotionally drained at the end of them. Like people, middle of the split, compression, I don't know what it is.
It's
but
a stressful split.
It's really stressful for a lot of them. So I'm glad for FlyQuest that they put some clothes on. They've done streaking.
Yeah. Is that what happens? Like, do we have a gif of you putting clothes back on?
Probably a
after
gif of him in
streaking?
prison. after the act.
With that, let's look at today's schedule. With NRG taking on the aforementioned FlyQuest to kick off the day. Team Liquid Honda taking on C9, which I'm actually still really interested in, despite the fact that we just highlighted TL's loss streak. Dignitas versus TSM in the middle of the day. Evil Geniuses LG versus Immortals Progressive. And then closing it out with 100 Thieves versus Golden Guardians.
Still looking forward to TL versus C9. That one should be an exciting game, especially Summit versus Fudge. That matchup I need to see.
100 Thieves versus Golden Guardians. I'm curious to see if 100 Thieves can keep the momentum up. I thought Quid had his best game easily, not just because it was a win, but like legitimately setting the team up with big shuffles and things like that.
Yeah, and it was cool to have the 100 Thieves guys on yesterday and talk to them a little bit about some of their issues in terms of bringing Quid in, and then he's jet lagged. It actually reminded me a lot of what GG said with Gory coming when he was initially here with the delayed start, and then he's playing with like three days in the country and being super jet lagged. Now they have their coach on stage as well, so I am also looking forward to that matchup. First, we have NRG versus FlyQuest, and I'm actually going to take a look because NRG had another one of those games yesterday.
Yeah.
They went very, very long. We talked about it against Golden Guardians, and it was kind of Contractz highlighted in your interview with him. The mid to late game, something they still need to work on. I actually thought they were the most clean in this time.
Okay.
Against C9. So I am going to go through one of their Baron setups because I thought it was really interesting. The two people that you want to pay attention to the most on this team and were the most important are the Jayce and the Azir, because these are the two that are going to be pushing out their side lanes. So the lead up to this is actually, we're starting at 21:16, but prior to this, almost exactly at 20 minutes, they were already setting up to try to take Baron with Azir pushing out top. And then C9 was pushing out mid here. So they tried to sneak it around 20 minutes. It did not work out. But then the setup for this is that they're going to be going back to it, right? So IgNar is going to be here, and he's going to come in and end up, here, we'll play it out. IgNar is going to come as they start setting up for this Baron, and he's going to come in and clear out this ward here. M&S had to respond to that topside push, and then they're just going to immediately start on it because they know that C9 has absolutely no vision here, and IgNar knows where they are. More importantly, we have a back going through as well, and they don't really see this until it's too late. And I thought, in addition, because here they go, the first time C9 pinged this out around 20 minutes, NRG immediately scattered. Now they know they already are able to DPS the Baron down enough with Jayce joining. And I just thought this was a really good setup that followed up on their initial attempt at 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The way that they were pushing out side waves with Dhokla and Palafox on that Jayce Azir combo. And also really making the most of the fact that they have an engage support as opposed to the Yuumi, who can face check a lot more or easily when clearing out wards.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be when they're at their best, is when they're able to have an engaged support and make decisive team fight calls. So it's not just Contractz needs to start every fight. But also, they are up against FlyQuest, and just depending on when you were thinking about this matchup, 2 weeks ago, you're like, that's going to be a tough one.
Yes.
Now you're thinking maybe not because they're 1-6, but I want to update the probability chart.
Let's do it. They won a game.
Yesterday, they had a very low chance of making the playoffs. 1 of 18 games actually doesn't make as big of a difference as I thought it would. So there's still a very high chance, if every game for the rest of the split were to be 50-50 probability, this is our stats guy Liam who put this together for us, there's still a very difficult chance for them to move up the standings. But personally, I do think that they can make the run. Like last split, we had Golden Guardians start 0-4, speed run all the way to second place in the finals. True. I don't think FlyQuest is out of it just because that playoff line is still now, 45% chance they get into it. If they can get there, then I think they're going to be in a decent spot.
I actually do think it was a huge win, though, because they've basically knocked off 9% from their 10th place likelihood.
Yep.
And that got,
fair.
It got pretty evenly distributed from the rest. So no individual positive change is huge, but the negative delta was pretty large, where it's like 10% almost less likely to end in last place just with that one pickup win.
Right.
So it is.
That's a really good point.
It is big in that sense, but
because that's also the Immortals loss, so they're only one game back from the team.
True, it was the team that they beat. That's probably why it was such a big thing. It's still an upwards battle, like you're saying, but it does at least the likelihood of just ending 10th outright dramatically change.
Yep.
Yeah, and now we'll see, again, I think the thing we always wonder and the thing teams do talk about, especially with the compressed schedule, is like how much internal momentum matters. And like, even if they were super stressed loading into the game yesterday, just getting the win, was it perfect? No. Did they make mistakes? Absolutely. But just getting that and shedding that will,
that burden.
Like again, like you talked about looking at Prince, looking at players, like just the relief, that kind of emotional release. And hopefully now we can see more of what we've been hearing about in scrims, because apparently they're still crushing it in scrims.
True. And I mean, we were watching the game saying that there are certain fights that they just it felt like they were playing scared, afraid to lose, right? And then even after the game, there was an interview. It was Degon interviewing Vulcan, and he was just talking about the best thing that the win meant is that like it just gave them confidence. Like literally to your point. So if that just means that they have cleaner games now that they've actually seen the ball go through the hoop, like then great. And that just means that a newer FlyQuest is joining the league.
Yeah.
I'm still scared. It was a hard-fought game with what everyone thinks is kind of a comp advantage. And Prince had to play pretty good. He had a couple hero plays over the course of that game. So I still think there's a lot more to improve on. But like you said, hopefully this like relief makes everyone else start playing a little looser, a little bit better.
Now I want to see what you predicted.
How many of you bet on FlyQuest? We're going to find out.
Oh,
I know.
Jatt is continuing.
Who's a phony?
Whoa!
Oh!
Wait,
Mark,
I'm the only one?
you fraud.
Wait, NRG just beat Cloud9 and Golden Guardians back-to-back, and they're going up against a team that barely beat Team Liquid with a better comp, and now it's a 65% fan vote, and all three of my other analysts are now doubting NRG?
You're a fraud,
So
Mark.
I'll take the bait, because I think the mid game for both of these teams is not great.
I didn't say that.
This is interesting.
And so I think it's going to be heavily draft dependent. Both teams have also shot themselves in the foot with draft in previous games. I'm wondering if Ivern is going to be hotly contested. I'm wondering if Tristana is going to be hotly contested.
You know what it is?
But in terms of like who's going to have that miracle late game team fight, I'm favoring FlyQuest.
Also, all the FlyQuest believers just came out of the woodwork. Is that what it
They're
was?
right back
Yeah.
at it.
They're right
Give
back
them a
there.
taste.
They were just waiting.
Just give them a little.
They're hiding.
A little nibble.
Game 3.
And we're out.
I like Game 3 as well, the split deaths for all of us.
Yeah.
That looks like the closest one.
All right. Well, we'll see what the casters think about NRG versus FlyQuest, whether they believe in them. It's time to start the show. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back
to another day here at the LCS. It is day number 2 of week number 3, and it's time to hop into yet another battle here on Summoner's Rift. I'm CaptainFlowers. That's Azael, who's going to be having his first play-by-play cast ever in League of Legends later on today.
I'm a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, if you were play-by-play casting, I wouldn't also be on the desk because everybody knows there's no way we could flip the roles and I could be the analyst.
Hey,
That's
we
not
can
happening.
test that. We can put that to the test.
I mean, we're going to have to pay one of these guys $50 to lock in Skarner or something. That's the only way I'm going to give you
That could
anything
be
useful there. Something
Hey,
about
Santorin, you want to make a cool
integrity.
50? I feel like he might go for it.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe I can bump into him in the hallway later on. But for now, we got NRG going up against FlyQuest. Now, FlyQuest, up until yesterday, had a big old donut in the win column for the first 2 weeks. To the surprise of pretty much everybody, they finally got that first win. They're on the board! And it was a mess.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess, but a dub is a dub is a dub, and we definitely take those. FlyQuest, trust, we scale. See, there you go.
All
That's the
right,
call. We'll see how they're going to look here against NRG, who the guys in the lounge, we're talking about it. NRG has had a pretty good string of games here, back-to-back wins. They beat Cloud9, first team to do that. Then they took down Golden Guardians, another team, that was expected to be up towards the top of the table. So it's going to be an exciting one to see if they can actually maintain that level of performance here against FlyQuest. Will be a big challenge for them. And will FlyQuest be a little bit unlocked by the fact that they finally got that monkey off their back? They got that first win. They don't have that pressure anymore of still being winless.
Right. It's one of those things that if nothing else can at least just maybe turn the tide in your mind a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If you're losing all these games that you feel like you absolutely should not be losing, it can just frustrate you to the point where, oh, now we're making even more mistakes. Now we're having even less communication. But sometimes just a little bit of an interruption to that, what was the word they were using yesterday? Momentum?
Yeah.
The momentum has shifted now, so maybe it'll work out. We got Rakan, Maokai, and Vi banned out by NRG. FlyQuest taking the Nico, Ivern, and Kai'Sa off the table. First pick LeBlanc for Palafox.
Melio also is available, has been really high prio still on this patch, but is falling down a little bit, I will say. It had been basically 100% prio on the last patch. Now it is falling through some of the picks and bans. We'll see if they are going to go towards it. I do think we're also seeing, because of some of the enchanted nerfs, some of the supports are just feeling like, even if this champ is really, really strong, I want to play something that fits my style better, right? Some of the champions that really just work well with them, hard engaged champs, we're seeing more Rell, more Rakan, more Nautilus, things that can have that go button. And it is going to be a relatively early Tristana here. We've seen some Tristana mid. VicLa did play it yesterday in their win.
Yeah.
But I am not the biggest Tristana mid fan. I do think it can be pretty risky, especially if you can get an aggressive jungler to pair with the LeBlanc, because this champion plays really poorly from behind.
All right, well, Isaac, I hope you got a glass of milk, because here's my spicy take.
Okay.
I like Tristana mid, depending on the pilot.
Okay.
And VicLa piloted it questionably yesterday. I think that he was focused by a lot of ganks, so I'll excuse that.
You're not getting on air VicLa?
There were some of the decisions in some of those fights that I was left scratching my head about. I was, since I wasn't on yesterday, I was in Twitch chat just BSing with everybody there.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody was talking like, oh yeah, when you run 2 marksman comps, you got to make sure that you're keeping your range and all that. I'm like, no, you play 2 marksmen, so when your first marksman dies, you have another one. And I wasn't quite...
You're joking, but actually you're not, though.
So
It's the backup marksman people. Come on.
I hope that he can have a better performance on it here today, and because it can be a very powerful pick, especially if you get ahead, if you get rolling, and you can knock down those turrets so swiftly. It's a monster.
Absolutely. I mean, when you really do take over a lane, when you have perma-prio, when you have that shove, you crush through turret plates incredibly quickly. You have the ability to really dominate a lane. But when you start to lose in the 1v1, all of a sudden you don't get access to the wave. You're getting poked off. You're getting really chunked down. And you don't really have any utility to speak of. So at that point, you're just kind of hoping that you can scale up and be useful later on, right?
Yep.
You really fall off a cliff pretty quickly. But we will see what they want to pair alongside it. It is going to be, that dynamic duo up on the top side for FlyQuest, Spica, alongside Impact on the Sejuani and the Renekton. Renekton really rising in prio again as well here on 13-12.
Yep.
We've been seeing a ton of it. We did get to see that cool counter pick from Rich where he brought out the Quinn. But besides that, it has mostly been the pretty standard stuff. People are picking Gnar into it. People are picking tanks into it and just looking to have more value later on in the 5v5. And we can see K'Sante getting banned out, Kennen getting banned out. So we'll see where Dhokla wants to take us. He has been playing a pretty large variety of champions, a mix of tanks and carries. But, given the first 3 picks here, I would not be shocked at all if it's just like a Scion game or something for Dhokla.
Yeah. The Ezreal, Alistar, Kinnan, Cassante, all banned out here. Worth noting that we talked a little bit about the Tristana, but also when you think about Sejuani in the jungle, Sejuani likes melee pairings in the solo lanes to help give those stacks and allow her to make the ganks more effectively. So gonna have that edge, not quite as sharp there in the mid lane, but FlyQuest will lock in Aphelios for Prince. Remember, during yesterday's game against Team Liquid, it was Prince going hero mode, full Chad Xayah, flashing in to make the hero play at the Elder fight that actually gets them the win.
Yeah.
And it's questionable whether or not they win that game if he doesn't do it. So put the faith in Prince. I feel like FlyQuest, that's always got to be part of the game plan.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more and more of this on red side as well this week. We've been seeing a tremendous amount of fifth pick supports here, looking for that 2v2 advantage in the bot lane. FBI going to be going towards the Rell. We've seen a tremendous amount of Alistar as the answer because you can interrupt the crash down. You do have that. I really do think there are some enchanters that are incredibly strong into the Rell, though. I'm a big fan of Janna. I know we don't see a tremendous amount of it in pro play, but I actually do think it answers in this meta really, really well, not just against the Rell, but also against things like the Wukong. You have the disengage for that. It's pretty simple. Can give you a more dominant lane because Alistar, I don't think, is the strongest of laners. Braum also makes a lot of sense here, being able to just absorb that initial engage, block things like the Empowered Shock Blast, block things like the Varus poke as well. So Vulcan going to be playing that, and Braum always pairs so well with these double marksman comps. You stack up that passive incredibly quickly. When it comes time to 5v5, your job pretty much just becomes applying the passive to multiple members.
Mark a guy.
Exactly.
And then over on the other side, you were talking about how, hey, it looks like it might be a tank angle game, maybe just be a role player. Not what we're going to get out of Dhokla. They did ban out some potential carries in the top side, getting rid of things like the Kinnan and the Cassante, but he's going to pick up the Jayce, take that into Renekton instead.
And it feels like they are moving more heavily towards a poke comp with this. We do talk about LeBlanc as an assassin, and yes, she is when she gets really far ahead, but oftentimes in the later stages of the game, you really are just functioning as a poke champ. You W over a wall, QRQ, you chunk someone out, you're looking for that less the 100-0. And when you're paired with a Varus, with a Jayce, that poke can become pretty oppressive. It's very difficult to face check into what NRG have drafted. Of course, there are some beefy frontliners here on the FlyQuest side whose job is going to be absorbing that poke, who is going to be the people who have to kind of face check those brushes. So we'll see how exactly they want to play it out. Is it going to be full poke Varus? Is it going to be, just AP or on hit? There's a lot of different ways you can go these days. Even with the rune choices, in the past it had been really obvious with rune choices which way you were going to go.
Right.
Now we've been seeing a lot of people go with different runes and all still going towards AP.
Well, let's see how they decide to play it out here. NRG they would love to keep this win streak going, man. They've already gotten through the hard part. Cloud9 and Golden Guardians, awesome. Good job, boys. They're the ones who showed Cloud9 are mortal in summer.
Yep.
They smacked Golden Guardians upside the mouth. Now they just got to keep it rolling against everybody else. Don't get too far ahead of yourselves. Play the game smart.
I mean, it's crazy, right? We're talking about FlyQuest as this team that is supposed to be an easy team now because they had a horrible start to the split. But if you look back to last split, their schedule was literally first, second, third at the end of playoffs, right, in a row. So it could not be a harder schedule when you were circling that, as soon as the schedule was made after last split. So that is something that you really do have to look out for. FlyQuest sent all 5 top. They wanted to get that side lane brush. Can be really important in these melee versus ranged matchups to be able to have that. So Jayce can't just be poking in and out of the brush and avoiding minion aggro, resetting that over and over and over as he harasses the Renekton. It is going to be PTA on FBI, so I'll be interested to see where he goes. Again, initially we had been seeing for the AP builds a lot of Halo Blades. Then, Lethal Tempo had more the AD on hit. But this week we also saw Unforgiven go Lethal Tempo and still play the AP style of build. I would assume with PTA that it is going to be more the AD on hit style. But very well could still just be Shiv into AP, as has been the most common Varus build. But we've also seen poke builds. We also have occasionally seen Blade of the Rune King, Hurricane, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of variants, honestly, for Varus these days.
And worth pointing out, summoner spells are mirrored across the board, including in the AD carry position there, with both of them deciding to take the cleanse to get out of some of the CC available to both sides here. Only difference being the heal for Vulcan versus the ignite on IgNar.
Yeah.
When I see Rell locked in as support, I love seeing the Rells that like to roam around, like to be playmakers. I love seeing the ignite being taken to guarantee that they can get some of those early kills and make use of those roams when they're leaving that AD carry in bottom just to sit back underneath turret and farm. And knowing IgNar as a player, I'm hoping that's what we get to see here in this one too.
Absolutely. That's really what he's known, but they're going to go in on the bot side.
Already, Prince below half HP, but FBI's taking some shots back. IgNar's now got to be careful as Vulcan and Prince taking this opportunity to fire back at him here. Don't want to commit too far. Still only level 1. They know that NRG's going to hit level 2 first, and there it is. FBI and IgNar picking that one up. But just a little bit of scrappiness early on here. I like seeing it from both sides, quite honestly, especially when you've both got these melee supports. It's not the Enchanter world. Everybody wants to be able to go in.
Yeah, and it was a flash already down for IgNar. So he flashes in, he trades it for the cleanse, does not use the ignite, but if they go in next time, there will be no cleanse for that ignite. So probably going to be looking for another aggressive play. Does have access to that Hex Flash. That is something that we used to see a lot of when melee supports would play Hex Flash. They just try to trade flashes. In this case, he did not actually get the flash trade, did just get that cleanse, but does open up opportunities here. And Spica obviously has been spotted, clears out the ward. Contractz knows that he's going to be in that area and will be looking for him, but it is a little bit of a difficult invade because Spica is a lot closer to his bot lane.
Oh, Spica will just farm up that Gromp. Contractz doesn't jump out after him. Contractz is just waiting in this brush still. There we go. Immediately opens up with the crushing blow.
Yeah. But not really getting that much. The interesting thing is, though, is it should be his blue buff because Spica was nervous about the smite steal. So IgNar left lane. That prompted Vulcan to move up to actually help defend because they were expecting this invade. Spica was worried that Contractz was going to pop out of a brush and smite away that Gromp. So he used smite on the Gromp, which means he can't stay to contest the blue buff because he's going to lose that 10 times out of 10. You would hope against that.
You would expect.
You would expect. As I said, I was like,
and the other one doesn't.
You never know.
In pro play, there's just a lot of check boxes here that I feel like are being checked.
It's a choose your own adventure sometimes, you know?
Dude, it's a choose your own adventure at the to win the game, turn to page 2. To die, turn to page 97. Well,
What if I want to see what happens? I mean, 97, winning the game, I already know what that looks like. How do I lose from here? That's interesting. That's exciting. You know?
Well, fortunately
spice it up.
Fortunately for NRG, Contractz did not turn to page 97. He just stuck around. He stole the blue buff. There was no problem with it. They're all right. VicLa wants to jump in on Palafox here, find a nice quick trade. The power of the burst from that explosive shot when Tristana can just go in like that. Palafox having to be a little bit careful here. Normally it's LeBlanc threatening those bursty trades, but Tristana's real good at it too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's almost no champions that really do win the trade if you're allowing Tristana to auto you with the explosive shot on you, right? That is the reality of it, is it's so much power added. And if you ever spend spells on the wave, that's one of the things that makes Tristana mid such a threat. If you're ever forced, because Tristana is just going to kind of try to relentlessly shove in a lot of these matchups, and if you can force your opponent to utilize their spells to try to hold the wave away from their turret or to last hit, all of a sudden, you just jump on them. You just go right in there. You don't have spells? Great. Try to trade it into an explosive shot. That's going to be difficult.
It's like, all right, dude, here you go. Topside Impact and Dhokla. Oh, Impact's not having a very good time here. I was about to say they're scrapping a little bit, but Impact using that Cold and Meek there to guarantee that he stays healthy enough to not have to spin the flash. The nice part for him is even though he's very low on HP, Dhokla's very low on mana, so... Oh man, that's...
that was close.
A little bit too close there, Mr. Crocodile. Down to 50 HP there for Impact.
Did his auto go off, or did he auto a minion? I wasn't sure, because he went for the Q flash, he hit the Q, but I wasn't sure if the auto actually came through on the end of that. Now this is actually really scary for Dhokla, because Dhokla uses his flash, doesn't get the kill, his wave's in a bad spot, and his opponent just hit 6.
Yeah,
so now he has to base. The wave will not crash. You know, if we look at the minimap, you can actually see the wave right there is actually being held. So you just base from this position, and what it'll do is it'll slow push towards you. So Dhokla's now forced to TP back to try to hard shove out that wave. Impact can TP back to answer, but a full wave will be denied from Dhokla. And at the end of the day, Impact should be ahead, XP should be ahead, gold, and we'll have the flash advantage here. And of course, Renekton at 6, you're getting a lot more from hitting 6 than the Jayce is. So now Dhokla's kind of put into this pattern where he's got to be really careful. And you can see he doesn't even feel comfortable to necessarily walk up to that wave. It's still being held. You know, if we can look up towards top lane, it's problematic.
He doesn't know that the Sejuani's down in mid. Contractz now. He was coming in for a gank on mid, but VicLa immediately just turns it so hard that Contractz is the one having a flash away. It's a flash for flash, Contractz for VicLa here in mid, so Palafox at least has the advantage there in summoner spells.
Yeah.
But it's scary, man. You gank the Tristana like that, the burst damage immediately right back in your face, and with Contractz forced out, with him put at such low HP, this is now a green light for FlyQuest to rotate that mid laner down here, join up with Prince, Vulcan, and Spica, and guarantee a free, easy, and early first trade.
Yeah, that's really, really big. And it's also so nice that Honey Fruit is here for VicLa, because he can actually just come out of lane. He got chunked down pretty heavily, but he grabs the Honey Fruit, goes right back to lane, healed up a bit off the dragon, has the fleet as well, so getting those fleet procs, and he's back pretty healthy, so doesn't have to be as nervous, because if he actually got left in that low HP situation, even though they got the flash off Contractz, he's down a flash and Palafox to threaten it all in. So he might have been forced back to base. So this kind of bails him out and makes it just a win for FlyQuest, really in all regards.
Everything coming up FlyQuest here early on. That top side all in, like we were talking about with Dhokla, I can't really fault him for it because it was just 40 or 50 HP or whatever that his opponent survived with. So I can see what he was going for there, just being slightly off on the calculation. But like you're saying, man, now you're up against a Renekton Sejuani combination. He has flash advantage. Everything is a risk.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so difficult, right? Oh, well, we're going to see him die.
There it is, Ruthless Predator. They're going to stack up the stun. They aren't even using the Sejuani ulti because they know they don't need it. Impact commits the Dominus to guarantee no potential one-for-one trade, and it's FlyQuest first on the board.
Nicely done by FlyQuest. They get that kill. They don't overcommit. No flash used by Impact. No ulti used by Spica. So then they can just go right over to the Azael here. We can see Rell is coming up, as is Wukong. Both ADs are down towards bot lane, but Prince is threatening a move. He's not showing. So even the fact that Prince is not showing has to make NRG a little bit nervous that he could be coming. And in fact, he is cheating up a little bit. I don't think the NRG can get in. There's no real way.
Yeah, FlyQuest are just going to hard force that. When they're up over 1,000 gold, they got the first 2 neutral objectives. IgNar is not level 6. Vulcan, the same story here, as neither of the supports has access to the full kit, so I don't expect to see any crazy engages coming out. IgNar just sticking around long enough to proc the Targans there, guaranteed that he gets Palafox a little bit of extra money and grabs his own too. Contractz not going to get much other than just clearing the wards out.
Yep. And I like how Prince played that, right? Prince doesn't know exactly where everyone is, and he wants to threaten that he's moving up because he had already pushed out bot wave. So what he did was he pushed out bot wave, started moving up the river, and then just went and farmed Braum during that time, right? So he didn't hard commit all the way up because he saw NRG weren't committing. If they did go for the full fight, he could have moved towards mid lane and tried to be there to reinforce. So I do think it makes quite a bit of sense here. We can also see FBI is going towards that static Shiv as VicLa, no flash, gonna get chained up.
VicLa trying to disengage there. Buster shot knocks IgNar away, and VicLa can then rocket jump back to safety. He's gonna survive the attempt on his life.
Nicely done. That was the flash, if I'm not mistaken, off of IgNar, and the ignite, and the ulti. So gets the whole kit out of the Rell there, survives. Nice Buster shot from him, gonna keep himself safe. And gets out of dodge with that flash still down here. It's almost back up, and that is kind of that window that NRG were trying to capitalize.
And now you're feeling so much safer on FlyQuest. I was talking earlier about how when I see Rell locked in, I love to see this champion roaming. I love to see plays being made around the map. Well, when you just emptied the magazine and you didn't hit the broadside of a barn, all of a sudden, the enemy team's not so scared no more as Impact. Having to chase Dhokla back away here. Pops the Dominus here in this trade to come out on top. Now with the wave ready to crash in and his jungler swooping around from the side. Dhokla's got to be careful.
Bound to leave.
Let's see. Are they going to go for something here? It looks like they just might. All right, Spica's going to lead the way. Flash into the Ruthless Predator, and there it is. They get the immediate kill on Dhokla. Contractz wants to pick one back up on an Impact. Cyclone 2, he finds it. Now Spica's being a little bit cautious here. Does not want to overcommit because he's not sure if help is going to be coming for the other side. He'll go ahead and guarantee they push out this next wave. He does have the Eye of the Herald in inventory, but he is not using it just yet. The timer is expiring rather soon, it looks. Or no, wait, never mind. This is the Broken Spectator.
Yeah, it's the Broken Spectator
I was like, there's no way it's expiring that fast. It literally can't.
It's a double eye. See, the first eye is expiring, but there's an eye behind it.
Okay, we have a second charge on the Herald timer that doesn't work.
On the timer, yeah.
That's good.
Not on the Herald, but on the timer.
Good to know.
Yeah, you get a backup one. A backup timer in case you mess up on the first one. As we're going to see this play one more time. Dhokla obviously was trying to stay around because Contractz is here, but he has no flash, so he has no real ability to react to that. I know the spectator showing Dhokla had a flash. He didn't have it yet. I don't believe. So does get punished there. Palafox now jumping forward. The Shiv is completed for both Palafox and FBI. It's a devastating 2-0 Shiv lead for NRG, despite the fact that they're down 2,000 gold.
And remember, everybody watching at home, I know the Shiv was nerfed on the live patch, but we are not on the live patch right now.
We're in the past.
This is still Time Machine static
Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
And it's still every bit as good as it was.
And we've got professional grifter, Clayton CaptainFlowers.
Yeah, don't forget to buy yours now. 555 Rito Plus. That's 555 Rito Plus. Buy it now. As well, actually, you guys shouldn't buy it now. You should probably stop buying it.
My
Maybe
God, you're scamming the poor people at home out of their money. Grandma, don't listen. You need that money for retirement.
Turn off the home shopping network. Well, FlyQuest,
could you, Flowers?
They're mad too. They must have watched some bogus infomercials.
Yeah.
They're just going to take everything away from NRG.
They ordered Static Shiv. They got only a Kerchi shard. It was a ripoff.
Oof. You hate to see it. NRG thinking about maybe contesting this one. They've given away all of the neutral objectives so far. I should just say both. It's only been 2, but it looks like it's about to turn
200%.
into an all of it here as that third one's about to drop over to FlyQuest as VicLa jumps away from Contractz and IgNar again, looking for the Tristana, but never really finding much of anything at all. Contractz and IgNar can't catch up to anybody. FlyQuest, they get the objective, they disengage in time. They're up 2,000 gold, not even 13 minutes in. The early game's looking good.
Yeah, it's looking really, really good. So now we have to see how they can move this forward. Dhokla is struggling on that top side. You know, went for that aggressive play. When you're playing range versus melee, the way that you win these matchups, everybody knows, is you poke, you prod, you harass, you whittle them down slowly. And to do that, you have to position aggressively. And when you don't have flash and you don't have jungle coverage, you cannot position aggressively. And the melee champions can threaten that all in, and that is kind of what has happened here. As Impact and Spica have been working well together to really put Dhokla into a hole this time. So Dhokla going to be struggling to dig his way back out of this, but it is double Shiv. It is going to be this Jayce stacking that lethality, stacking up the tier, and they will have a tremendous amount of pokes. So if NRG can execute really well around these team fights, try to soften up FlyQuest before that fight begins, there's still ways that they can win the 5v5s.
And that means there's also some pressure on Vulcan, like you were talking about in Champ Select. I want to see value out of the Unbreakable.
Yeah.
That needs to block some piercing arrows, block some of those accelerated shock blasts, especially when you're looking at guys like VicLa and Prince. One massive accelerated shock blast is half of a health bar.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get really fed, it can be problematic. But it is also double fleet footwork, and likely we will eventually have both VicLa and Prince building towards some lifesteal. Might not come in second, but I do think third we'll probably see BTs for potentially both of these champions. Yeah. And then as long as you have access to minions, you have access to a jungle camp, something, you can really start to shrug off that poke, which makes it even more important to kind of have those setups around neutral objectives where it's not as easy to just lifesteal up off of minion wave for free.
So total gold on the left side of your screen right now, it's all red bars, all FlyQuest at the top, except for Palafox there at the number 2 net worth overall. That means I've got extra pressure on him in whatever upcoming fight to try to make something happen. IgNar has to flash away trying to disengage. Contractz going in after VicLa, but now he's all alone. Chains of Corruption fly out, but they only find Vulcan. Contractz with a flash to dodge away from the Glacial Prison as Impact slices and dices back over the wall. IgNar doesn't have a flash to get away now. He re-engages with a Magnet Storm onto 3. VicLa's dead and FBI got the kill. FlyQuest are trying to fight, but they're already slammed back down into the river. NRG, well fought.
Really well played there by NRG. They make it happen on the top side. It was a great engage there from IgNar. And as FlyQuest filter in, they group up. IgNar finds his moment. They get the kills. Some really big burst was coming through there from NRG, and Prince was kind of zoned out of the fight pretty heavily. He was dueling on the side against Palafox, you know, more towards mid lane. And yes, he was getting a bit of decent chunk down onto him. You can see over here, he lands the ulti, he was spotted out by the ward. But if your AD carry is not there, right, this is a team that doesn't have as much consistent damage. It's just VicLa that is really in the fight as that big DPS. So everyone just focuses onto VicLa. VicLa dies immediately as he gets caught out there by IgNar. And by the time Prince has rejoined the team, the fight is already lost.
IgNar did a great job there too. He had to use the flash early. He disengages back over the wall. He picks his moment to re-engage. And if he picked that moment wrong, and we talk about this a lot when we're talking about enchanters versus melee supports, you have to be the guy deciding when to fight on that melee engaged support. If he picked that moment wrong, if he was desynced with the rest of the team by a second or something, the dude's deader than hell.
Yep.
Like, he went in at the right time. He locks everybody down. He escapes. NRG just played it really well.
Absolutely. And FlyQuest, their comp really wants to function as a 5-man unit, right? You know, if Prince was there from the very beginning and everyone was focused firing VicLa, well, all of a sudden Prince is maybe just shredding you, right? But because Prince was a bit late to the fight, he was kind of fighting back and forth there with Palafox, NRG just preempt the play. They just send everything on the one real threat that was there in VicLa, and they burst him down. And now VicLa does have a Vamp Scepter here, so he may just be going actually BT second, really feeling like that poke is going to be pretty problematic, and I do kind of agree.
At 12 minutes and 45 seconds, the game was a 2,000 gold lead for FlyQuest. 4 minutes later, it's a 3K swing the other direction with NRG having nearly a 1,000 gold lead for themselves. Now, FlyQuest does have those first 2 Drakes still under their belt, so that's going to give them some combat stats to make up for some of what the gold would tell you is an NRG lead. And we do have that next Drake spawning here in about 30 seconds. I would assume that NRG wants to fight for it so they don't have to deal with a soul point Dragon Soul win condition for their opponents.
And Ocean Soul is really difficult to deal with as a poke-based comp, right? If they start to get a lot of regen, if you can't 100-0 people against Ocean Soul, you generally cannot kill them. So I do think FlyQuest is going to be looking to continue playing for that, and I agree, NRG is going to be wanting to stop that here, if possible. 10 seconds till Dragon spawns, Herald going to get dropped down. This will get the tier 1.
Yep.
And we'll see if they want to just use this to go straight to the Dragon. I think that's going to be the play, not try to escort it in for that tier 2 charge.
Yeah.
But Palafox is sitting around. They're trying to get that early poke down onto Prince, but he has Red Gun, so he's able to heal up pretty effectively. NRG, though, already have started this. VicLa and Dhokla are down on that bottom side, but Impact is here, and they're trying to get in before the poke lands. Remember, FlyQuest need that hard engage in, start the fight at full health, try to finish it.
Precisely. They sidestepped away from some of the poke coming out there from FBI with a piercing arrow. VicLa waiting in this bottom side rush that spawned from the Ocean Rift. Impact and Spica, these are going to be the guys looking for that initial engage. Channel from IgNar just repositions himself right back next to his carries. Now Vulcan's going to eat a lot of damage. They engage. They immediately find the FlyQuest support, and Impact is being juggled around before we can do much of anything. VicLa with a disengage. Spica fires out the Glacial Prism, but FBI with an instant cleanse gets right back away from it. Prince eats a Shock Blast. NRG still not securing the Drake for themselves as Palafox jumps forward. Eats a little bit more damage from Prince on the long-range shot from Calibrum. NRG with complete control over the Drake pit now. The 1 kill on the support plus the damaged health bars on the enemy AD carry and top laner means NRG wins the fight, and they win it strong enough to take the objective.
I would love to watch that fight one more time and just really highlight how Palafox is playing this out. This is back-to-back fights now that he has kept Prince from really being a factor. As Vulcan was trying to actually move in through that corridor and create space for his ADs, he just went over the wall and actually pushed Prince away from the fight. He made Prince take the long way around through the blue buff here. So just watch Palafox right here on your screen, and then watch where Prince is over the wall. So as they're coming forward into this corridor, Prince is going to be targeted here in the back line. He goes in, while his front line is dying down here, he's pushed completely out of the fight. Palafox stays in this area, making sure that Prince has to walk the entire way around. So Prince is just now rejoining to the fight. His front line has already been taken down. Impact's ult is expiring. He's low. And it's these kind of plays that are really going to make it difficult for FlyQuest to execute on what their game plan is. And it's beautiful stuff here from Palafox. NRG wants it to be broken up, wants there to be little skirmishes, poking and prodding, really making things difficult for FlyQuest, where they want to be this cohesive 5-man unit, walking forward, big guys in front, little guys in the back, firing it out.
And I mean, there's been so many times before watching professional League of Legends throughout the years where you see a team engage on Braum, they don't get the kill and it goes bad. Palafox now got to be careful as Impact jumps on him here with the dominance in bottom lane. Teleports coming in from both sides. Dhokla arrives first. He's going to try to grab the kill on Impact before FlyQuest reinforcements arrive. Palafox jumps back in for the burst there. They take down the Croc before VicLa can do much here with that Tristana to reinforce.
Yeah, VicLa even flashed in there. I don't know if the call was that maybe Impact just about had stun or something and thought he was going to be able to get maybe stun and then heal up. I don't know if his Gore Drinker was coming just back up. There had to be something that really prompted that made VicLa think they could turn it around, because VicLa ends up keeping in, he flashes in, can't really get anything as Impact kind of dies as he flashes in. So goes bad there for FlyQuest, and all of a sudden, things really falling apart here once again for FlyQuest. Spica is there. I don't think they have eyes on the recalling Varus in mid lane.
No, he's
so not going to be able to stop that. Unfortunate for them. If Prince walked a little bit far forward, of course he couldn't have known, but if he had walked up, maybe Spica could have looked over the wall, but there could be an opportunity here on IgNar as Spica is behind him.
It's all just speculation, because the only reason he would know about that is if he had perfect vision.
Of course, yeah. It would have just had to be his AD randomly walks up and then he sees him over the wall, and could have ended up being a freebie, but now going to get spotted. IgNar not too worried about that. There was a lot of time invested there by Spica, honestly.
Yeah, for not a whole lot of anything, just a little bit of chicken camp cosplay that does not reward any gold or EXP. Meanwhile, if we're talking about getting something done, maybe it's Contractz finding the Croc up here on the top side. Both Cyclones already used. Impact trying to get away here. Shock Blast with no acceleration does not do enough damage, so Impact will survive. But they force the enemy top laner back to base, and they have total control over the top side.
Yep, all for all trade there at the end of the day, basically from Contractz and Impact. Dhokla just didn't quite have the move speed, doesn't have tier 2 boots, and honestly, that's the difference. The fact that there's tabbies over on Impact, and he just has the brown bag still wrapped on his feet, not quite able to catch up there. I think he used the acceleration gate earlier to try to actually close that gap for the move speed, and then went into hammer form, tried to catch back up, couldn't quite do it, so Impact barely able to survive there. Potentially now, though, Dhokla could be caught out We'll see if he actually shows. He knows that there is danger, so he's just sitting in the brush.
And we've got 90 seconds till the next Drake spawn. So if you die here or use an ulti here, you'll be back alive in time, or the ulti will be just barely ready to go by the Drake fight. But, you know, it's been 15 seconds since I started that sentence. Now we're getting to the point where it's a little bit more dangerous. We can't just be wasting these resources on random stuff, because if you're NRG, you're up 3,500 gold now. I don't think you're afraid to take any of these fights in open ground. They've already showed us they know how to pilot it as the comp that has a higher barrier of execution.
Yeah.
So I say you just take that fight every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are kind of in this point now where you really do not want to be Tristana 2k gold behind your opponent in mid lane, down 2 levels as well. So you're going to add in at least another couple hundred gold there from combat stats on top. So it's going to be a rough situation. It looks like he wanted to go for a pit stop for the Vamp Scepter, just have a little bit of sustain and then complete another item. Like maybe he's going Navori or something second. I'm not really sure exactly what he's going to do with his build here, but that would be my guess. We'll see VicLa where he wants to go with it. But either way, his second item is really far off, and 2 items are already done for Palafox and FBI. Prince is still keeping pace. He's farming very well. Yes, he is down kills, but he has really good CS. So he has that second item done, working towards what is likely the expected Bloodthirster third that I talked about. Yeah. But things are going to get difficult, and when multiple items are being completed for these poke comps, even with lifesteal, it can get really scary. When you hit 3 items, it can come to the point where AP Varus all of a sudden is not poking you anymore. It's
just killing you.
Just one-shotting you. Yeah.
Well, it's also scary stuff when that second item for the LeBlanc that you're talking about is the Night Harvester. For anybody who missed this interaction, yeah, it procs on the Shiv Lightning. So
that seems good.
If Palafox hits a Shiv proc and they're all grouped up on FlyQuest side, which you already said they like to play a traditional team fight, well, all of a sudden everybody could get chunked real bad. FlyQuest, they tried to sneak the Baron. I like the attempt at this. They know that they're not winning traditional approaches to fights right now, so try something that'll catch your opponents off guard. Unfortunately for them, NRG was able to pick up on what was going on, so they'll place down that Scryer's Trinket, immediately detect what's going on, force FlyQuest to stop. Drake is alive. Nobody's there just yet. FlyQuest still on about that 2,000 lead, or NRG on that 2,000 lead over FlyQuest, excuse me, who have managed to shrink it just a little bit from the slightly more extreme version that it was a little bit earlier. As, okay, now we've got everybody moving back down towards his bottom side a little bit further. Impact still up in top lane, but he's got the Unleashed Teleport. Actually, every single solo laner on the map, all 4 of them, Unleashed Teleports ready to go. So expect some side lanes. Maybe somebody tries to make a pick or a play there to get one of those guys out of the picture early. But I'm expecting whenever this fight happens, it's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's going to be a really important one here. The Dragon is up. NRG do have the ability to potentially look for it right here. I don't think that FlyQuest are really in position at all to stop it. So it's just going to be a second Ocean given over. Was spotted there by the blue trinket from VicLa, I believe. But nothing really happening for them on the other side. They can maybe establish some vision around the Baron, but that's going to be about it. So for FlyQuest now, Soul is kind of a pipe dream. You know, you're going to have to figure out some ways to be able to, either get picks, take a Baron. You've got to be able to do something here because their lead has completely been given away. They were up 2K, now they're down 2K. It is 25 minutes in, so honestly, 2,000 gold lead, not the end of the world.
Right.
But it is definitely concerning still.
So the nice part is we are at a point for everybody that's not VicLa where at least they're on the same amount of big completed items. Look, man, I'm just telling it how it is. It's not flame.
You're not lying. It's true. It's true.
The dictionary can't be mean. All right? And I am defining him
Depends
as
what words you use.
1 item behind. So most everybody is sitting on that 2-item spike, right? 2 completed items for Jayce, Wukong, LeBlanc. 2 completed
Everybody's
items
doing great.
for
VicLa's
Renekton
there
and
too.
Sejuani. Yes, VicLa, we need to have a little bit more money in Tristana's pockets. That's okay. He'll get there. Even for the AD carries, yes, they're both 2 fully completed items, working on that 3rd, but now Contractz looking for impact up here. IgNar and Dhokla coming around from the side as the TP's ready to reinforce and bring Palafox into the fight. FlyQuest with a full disengage. Magnet Storm not going to find the target. Palafox jumps in, but a nice unbreakable back from Vulcan, keeping FlyQuest healthy. NRG went for the play. They did not find enough damage to get the kill. They forced the flash out of the enemy top lane.
They get the flash off him, but it's Contractz flash, it's IgNar's flash and Ignite, and it's both their ultis. So yes, you get some ultis traded over. Vulcan's ult, his his heal, the flash of impact, but I think it's honestly pretty good for FlyQuest at the end of the day. And in fact, held his ulti, he has his TP. FlyQuest are here, so if they can actually make something happen around the Baron, we'll see if they can punish. VicLa's still basing. He's going to be TPing, but it's going to be gone before he arrives.
But the DPS is slow. NRG are not making a call to burn it down super quickly. Baron being paused here at about 3,000. Spica goes over the wall. It's going to be a smite fight for the Baron. Here with the pits. It has been slain by FlyQuest. Spica with a beautiful steal keeps them in this game.
It looked like Prince actually ulted over the wall there with the Caliber and with the sniper rifle, tagged the Baron, and then waited until Spica went in and bursted the Baron with him over the wall. We'll have to see the replay to see if that is exactly what happened, but that is what it looked like on live to me, and that was really well done if that is the case. So let's watch it one more time. Over the wall here. He tags it with the Q. He's stacking up the chakrams. Then he throws out the ulti. Does that tag Baron? I don't think it does.
It flew through him.
So I don't think it actually does hit Baron, but he was still able to hit it over the wall. So did he have a turret? Yeah, is that a turret? Oh, it was a turret in the back of the pit. So it's the turret that is actually giving him the mark on Baron. So it wasn't the ulti. The ulti can't connect with the Baron. But the turret that he placed over the wall allows him to burst in with it. So it was still that same idea, just not in the exact way that I was saying it, but really well timed. Prince and Spica combining there to burst down the Baron, to steal that away. And just like that, getting some momentum back in this game. It's a big play from the jungler and from the AD carry.
It's what I was expecting, but not the way I was expecting. The fight was hugely important for the momentum of the game, for the pace that we're going to see for the next few minutes. I mean, if NRG gets that, all of a sudden they're up 4,000 gold and they're bulldozing every structure still standing on FlyQuest's side. But now that FlyQuest got it, we're back to an even game state. The aggro from NRG has also been paused because it's just so much more difficult to push against Baron Dub minions. This is a game changer for FlyQuest, giving them sort of a second chance.
Absolutely. It's a really, really huge play. And I like how they navigated this, because NRG did what is relatively common, where you start up the Baron, but then you pause around 2-3k, and you say, all right, you got to come in. If you jump over the wall, we're going to kill you. But their opponents just bursted it down. You know, you drop the turret over the wall, all of a sudden, Aphelios is in the mix, so it's not just on Sejuani, who can't burst it down from 2k. Aphelios plus Sejuani can, so that was really nicely done by them. But I will say, NRG spent too many of their turn abilities, like their abilities that they would want to use for that turn, that engage, on that chase down top side to really make that a safe Baron, right? Because if you still had flash on Rell, ult on Rell, flash on Contractz, ult on Contractz, then you do that and you all look for the turn.
Over the wall goes IgNar. Contractz popping that Cyclone, but it misses. NRG stumbling, trying to find a pick there on FlyQuest on their approach. And that's just, again, more useful resources now on cooldown.
Yep, absolutely. It is at least a trade, as Spica does throw out his ult as well to stuff that engage. But yeah, it goes bad for NRG. You know, they wanted to be able to pause the Baron to turn, or at least to zone them off and then secure it. But because they didn't have those tools to turn, it became a bit of a flip, and FlyQuest outplayed them on it. Now going to be able to stop this engage. They're pushing up here on that tier 2. You can see Dhokla still pushing up on top side, even with that Baron buff. In fact, not able to get that minion wave off his turret just yet, but they will take away the red buff. They will be able to put that red buff onto Prince as well as the Sejuani. Things starting to look pretty good. You know, BT is now completed for Prince. He has that as his third item. It was Navori second here for VicLa, so he did just make that pit stop as I was talking about for the Vamp Scepter, but he'll be working towards a BT as well. And the poke starting to mean less and less here. So it's going to have to be more about that kind of 100-0 combo where you catch someone with the Chains of Corruption and then you burst them down. Death Cap is complete for Palafox, so he definitely has the gold behind him to really look for those 100-0 plays. And he is 50 ahead of the curve as far as 10 CS per minute is concerned. Palafox is farming like a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, my eyes are on Prince as the main character of the game right now.
Yeah.
I think that if he's left alive, his Aphelios is going to be able to tear through NRG. But then just like we saw earlier, if Palafox can properly intercept him, if NRG can play the fights in a way where he's not able to have a good DPS uptime, then it's going to be a different story. FlyQuest getting engaged on. It's only Spica and Impacts over the damage here in the front. Prince is ready to swoop in. Trying to use the red-white. Finds a little bit of damage back. Contract's got to be careful. Disengages back away with the clone. Neither side losing a man. Contractz and Impact both limp away.
Yeah, going to be able to survive. Vulcan again with the good stuff there. As they try to actually pile through, the Glacial Fissure comes down. Vulcan able to push them back pretty heavily. Palafox trying to look for that trade. Will have to use the ulti distortion. Did still have that available. You know, just went forward with the 1Q. So it wasn't one of those situations where you did go W in and then QRQ and then get stuck on that distortion.
Yeah.
So was being careful, respected the fact that VicLa could jump forward with the rocket jump. And he has the BT now completed. So VicLa is a real boy. But Palafox, it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. You talked about Prince as the main character, but the Wizard also has a Wizard hat. So Palafox is going to be fearsome on the other side.
Yeah, we've got 3 items getting completed on all 4 of our carries right now. Top laners, you can see Dhokla completes his first. Impact's still working on that, a little bit behind in the economy department. But in the jungle, the Abyssal Mask for Spica. I always like this thing, just magnifying a little bit of the extra damage your opponents are going to be taking. And let's be real, there's not a ton of extra magic damage on the side of FlyQuest. It is just mostly Spica and then whatever little bits and pieces Vulcan can throw in. But hey, anything is something, right?
Yep.
They just have to try to knock these guys down. Prince is the guy to watch for, though. I'm telling you, with stopwatch in the inventory, with the 3 items online, so much of this game is going to come down to, does he get his DPS windows? IgNar gets locked down. FlyQuest are looking to go in on the enemy support, but he disengages. NRG, get away from that one.
The other thing that's really nice about Abyssal Mask is it's just dirt cheap, right? So it's one of these items that you can just get a quick item completion. Often as a jungler, you're not getting the 3 items unless the game goes really, really long. You can sometimes get this one completion in that's going to be more efficient than, just having pieces of a more expensive item there. FBI trying to fish for some poke, but not able to connect. And FlyQuest are now on Soul Point. I talked about that as a bit of a pipe dream a while ago when NRG had taken the lead, when they had taken back-to-back dragons. But now it's only 2 minutes away here. Prince.
Oh, Prince, that's scary, man. Vulcan body blocks there, the accelerated shock blast, making sure it can't finish off the AD carry. But with Prince so critically low, NRG seeing the opportunity to push this a little bit further. The piercing arrow doesn't find much. Shock blast again, only gonna hit Vulcan. So NRG doesn't really win anything big off of this. That Drake isn't spawning for another 2 minutes like you were talking about with the potential for Soul. Both teams neck and neck here on the gold overall. Only plus a 250 for FlyQuest. Only 7 kills in a 34-minute game. It's not been particularly bloody. Even when we go back to the Baron play and the Baron steal that happened to equalize things, there weren't any kills involved.
I mean, there's been a lot of fights, but it's been a lot of disengages without deaths, trades of summoners. Palafox has TP. I don't even know that they're aware of this. Now they must be, because they saw those wards poking out. They're going to TP in, but I think Contractz is too late. They can just burst this down.
Yeah, the Baron is already secured by the side of FlyQuest. If NRG want to get anything here, they've got to find some picks on the back end of things, but they're not in position. NRG got caught with their pants down, and FlyQuest are the ones picking up a free Baron.
Yeah, Palafox was down towards that bottom side, did get the gold to complete his Void Staff, so he's on 4 items now, monstrously strong, but they just aren't there in time. This late in the game with double marksman, you were going to shred through that Baron, especially with double Kraken. You are really doing a tremendous amount of damage to that Baron. They burst it down very, very quickly. 55 seconds until Soul Point here, or Soul, excuse me. They're already on Soul Point for FlyQuest, so they could claim this Ocean Soul, and that would be massive for them.
All right, who's going to take control? Right now, it's NRG. They've stolen away the enemy blue buff. They've denied that from anybody who might be picking it up. They've got control over the river. FlyQuest stepping up into the mid lane now. NRG want to try to find some opportunity here for a pick. Contractz doesn't just immediately jump onto VicLa. VicLa can easily disengage. Palafox gets absolutely slammed there in that trade. FlyQuest just with Baron control. They're pushing down mid lane. They're saying, look, if you want the dragon, you can have it. We'll just take the base. We can take the entire game from you.
Yeah, this is tough. The wave clear is not great from NRG at all. And the ulti's going to miss from FBI, so that's a critical tool gone. There's nothing really to threaten FlyQuest now. They're just marching forward. There's not going to be any poke landing here.
Yeah, the Chains of Corruption missing was huge. Contractz leaving the clone there on the front lines to try to soak some of the damage. Impact teleports in. FlyQuest are just walking down mid lane, killing NRG structures, and NRG has no way to stop them. They just sit there, and all they can do is wait for these cooldowns to come back. NRG just going to try to secure their own red. FlyQuest are marching back into the river now. They've moved NRG out of that position of control around the objective. They took objectives of their own in the meantime, and now they're the ones with priority over the river. Impact finding an immediate burst of damage on the Contractz, but taking a lot back himself. Contractz is over the wall into the pit. NRG ready to go. Impact disengaging once more. Contractz is so low, and VicLa's already got him. FlyQuest kill off the enemy jungler and secure themselves an Ocean Soul, you would have to think. VicLa going in the stopwatch. Drake Soul secured. FlyQuest is crushing NRG in the back. IgNar and FBI and Palafox are all killed. That's it. GG. FlyQuest are going to get their second win.
It's a clean ace out of nowhere for FlyQuest. They eviscerate NRG. They claim the soul. They had the Baron. They've got the base.
Honestly, the entire ending sequence there of FlyQuest just calling NRG's bluff marching down mid, NRG failing to respond. FlyQuest played it better at the end, and it got him a dub. They'll go up to 2-6. Back-to-back wins now here in week 3.
Nicely done by FlyQuest. This was a pretty back-and-forth game. FlyQuest out early, then NRG really pulling it back, creating a lead of their own. But as you say, once FlyQuest got that Baron at the end, those final sequence of events really went their way. They had the BT completed on both Prince and VicLa. The AD carries had scaled. The pokes stopped meaning as much. And this comp that NRG really had no wave clear against that Baron buffed up wave. So they just kind of called their bluff. You're going to set up around the dragon. We're going to take the base. Then they use that, get back towards that dragon. They look for that all-in play. They force the hand of NRG. Contractz comes over the wall trying to deny that soul. They burst them down, secure that dragon, secure the soul, and secure the game.
Nicely done from FlyQuest. One away now from having a perfect week.
Yeah.
Honestly, they needed it.
That's huge. I mean, back-to-back wins and against NRG, who, despite their record, has been on a little bit of a tear. You know, they took down some really tough opponents back-to-back. They beat Cloud9 last week. They beat Golden Guardians yesterday. So NRG has been looking good, and it's a really important win for FlyQuest. They've got to build that momentum. If they can win tomorrow, I think you can kind of just wipe those first 2 weeks away and just pretend it never happened. You can have that mental reset that you're really desiring, and try to start that climb towards the top of the table where everyone was expecting FlyQuest would be in the preseason. The beginning of this fight looked a little bit dicey, I'm not going to lie. His impact went in, got chunked out pretty heavily, but look at VicLa. I didn't catch that live. Actually, Buster shot FBI back into the red buff pit, so he was nowhere close to joining the fight. Contractz had to go over the wall to try to make something happen. Palafox goes back in, tries to burst down VicLa with Dhokla, but the stopwatch is there. And look at impact. You see that healing? The Ocean Soul has come through. He has a massive 3-man queue, plus the Gore Drinker as well. He went from about 30-40% health to full, and instantly is able to crush through the back line there.
And I've been giving VicLa some grief for some of the goofier parts of his Tristana play, so I got to give him praise there. The Buster shot was perfect.
Not goofy.
In the pit when NRG tries to jump in and go after impact and burst everybody else down too. His stopwatch is perfectly timed to make sure that he doesn't drop there. He ends up getting a triple kill in the final fight. Honestly, the dude did good, and FlyQuest, you know they are relieved to finally be finding that momentum here in week number 3. Viva la LCS! LCS in Espanol is the official Spanish language stream of the LCS. This new viewing experience is live on LLA's Twitch and YouTube channels right now. Scan the QR code or go to lolesports.com to learn more. But now, with that game completed, we are joining Jatt and Spica on stage for the Verizon post-game interview.
Thank you very much. I'm here with Spica. Spica, after the 0-6 start, how much did you feel like you needed to start this week 2-0?
Yeah, we kind of need to go 3-0, I think, this week in order to have a chance at even at playoffs. So, you know, it was pretty relieved that we managed to come back.
Yeah, you were telling me that you saw the graphic we had on broadcast yesterday.
It was like 45% chance to be in 10th place?
Yeah.
10th place, yeah.
Yeah, because of the 0-6 start.
Yeah.
Just if every game is a 50-50, it's hard to come back.
It's not 50-50.
Yeah, but not anymore,
yeah,
right?
Not
so
anymore.
Tell me a little bit about the momentum you've built here in the 2 games so far this week.
I mean, I think after we went 0-6, we realized, oh shit, we're in trouble, you know? So we really went back and just micro-analyzed, you know, what made us lose games. And I think one of the biggest things was that we're just too rushed. In game, it was really chaotic. We didn't know what to do, and everybody was just doing their own thing, right? So this week, we were just like, you know, we're just going to play something really easy, you know? Very straightforward front-to-back team fight to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And, you know, I think this week's game felt a lot better than last week's.
It's really interesting because whenever you're struggling, like so many things can be wrong at once.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you identified or changed in your practice between weeks 1 and 2? Because I'd been hearing that scrims were decent or strong, or was that not the case?
We were winning, like, leading up to LCS, we were winning like 90% of our scrims.
90?
We had 90% win rate. I mean, we still have pretty good win rate. I think right now, even after excluding before LCS, our win rate right now is probably like 60 to like 70 something.
Okay.
Above that. So yeah, I don't know, just unlucky, I guess.
Wow. Also, player of the game. Congratulations. I just received word that you got it.
I just stole Barrett.
It's pretty important. Pretty important. Have you changed anything about your own play, you feel like, between the first 2 weeks and these first 2 games of this week?
I think it's just more transition to playing like a facilitator. I think just, you know, playing Sejuani, you're frontline, you just, you know, you have the trigger to go. So I think that's, you know, makes my teammates like easier to play. So I think that's the adjustment I made.
All right, well, good to see you back on the stage. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Yeah, best of luck tomorrow, and we're going to send it to break where Cloud9 will take on Team Liquid when we come back.
Contractz with a flash to dodge away from the Glacial Prison as Impact slices and dices back over the wall. IgNar doesn't have a flash to get away now. He re-engages with a Magnet Storm onto 3. VicLa's dead and FBI got the kill. FlyQuest are trying to fight, but they're already slammed back down into the river. VicLa going in the stopwatch. Drake's soul secured. FlyQuest is crushing NRG in the back. IgNar and FBI and Palafox are all killed. That's it. GG. FlyQuest are going to get their second win.